So we're in the second part of imperialism now. We're hitting Unit 6, questions 3 through 5, 17 through 19. So not many questions today to finish up imperialism and finish up. So we've been talking about Latin America. We've been talking about areas around Cuba, sort of that kind of stuff before. But now we're moving more west. We're going to talk about, actually, we're going to talk about future U.S. states first, and then we're going to move west to China. So at this time, the U.S. is acquiring new territory. We've talked about being sort of an imperialistic country. So one of those places is Alaska that we obtained. So this was acquired by this guy named William Seward, who is the Secretary of State. One of my favorite people in U.S. history, or at least most interesting people in U.S. history. A lot of really cool things that happened with this guy. So if you ever want to know, come talk to me about him. So Seward's Folly or Seward's Icebox. So this is for number 3. So why was it called that? Because at the time, people thought it was a really stupid idea. We're going to buy this huge block of ice up near Russia, even like where even no one lives in Canada hardly, and we're going to expect this to pay off in some way. So it's this huge chunk of land. As the slide says there, it's over 585,000 square miles. So to put that in perspective, it's more than twice the size of Texas, which is obviously the U.S.'s largest state at this time. And now we're basically buying this huge territory that's twice its size. So another thing for number 3 is that it actually is a huge success for the U.S. So this thing has paid for itself so many times over. We bought it for, at the time, about 2 cents an acre. And even when Seward was leaving, he asked what his greatest achievement was. He said the purchase of Alaska, but it will take the people a generation to find out. And it's definitely been found out now. So we've used it for so many natural resources, and we've really taken advantage of it. It's an asset for the U.S. So Hawaii. So we're also looking to acquire other territories, specifically Hawaii, because, hey, that's a great place to dock our ships. It's way out there in the Pacific Ocean. Nice stopping point before we reach, we keep going to Japan, China, those areas over there. So at this time, though, it's not like they're just random indigenous people running around Hawaii. It's a civilized nation. So there's this individual, so it's for number 5. Her name is Queen Liliuokalani. So Queen Liliuokalani, and she's the monarch of Hawaii at this time. So it's so she's like the queen of Hawaii. So that's who she is. And what happens is, though, there are a lot of U.S.-born individuals living in Hawaii. So for number 4, the industry that they're really participating in is the sugar industry. So it's a great place to grow sugar cane, and this is a huge asset for sort of these men, because they're making a lot of money selling it to the U.S., who has a great desire for this sugar. The problem is, though, so sort of going on with number 4, these sugar planters are very upset over a new tariff put in by President McKinley. So this raises the prices of foreign sugar, so it makes it more difficult for people in the U.S. to buy their sugar, so they're not making as much money. So this is sort of screwing them in a sense that they're not able to make money, because Hawaii is not a state, is not a territory of the U.S. at this time. So basically, this guy named Sanford Dole, who, if you realize the last name there, it's a very famous last name. So sometimes when you eat canned pineapples and sort of different kinds of fruit like that, make sure to look at the can, because it might be Dole. So that's where sort of the Sanford Dole name, or the Dole name, came from, was these sugar planters in Hawaii. So what they do is they pretty much start an uprising. They throw Queen Liliuokalani out, and they try to negotiate becoming a territory of the U.S. So it's a really, really shady tactic. Basically, we didn't like that we weren't a territory. So the American individuals out there who were growing sugar did not like they had to pay more in tariffs, or people weren't buying as much of their stuff. So they basically throw this queen out and sort of try to negotiate a way to get Hawaii into the U.S. So not a very proud moment in U.S. history. So across the globe, so we're keeping going. We're talking about China at this time. So China is not the same China as we think of now, sort of this world power, really, really, really military, really civilized country at this time. It's a little different back then. And what's going on in China is spheres of influence. So this idea is a sphere of influence is like the area in which you have control over. So the greater your sphere of influence, the greater your influence is, the more like countries you can reach, all kinds of stuff like that. Well, specifically for China, so we're talking about number 17 here. So what is this meant by this term? So the most basic thing is where you have influence over others around you, the reach of your power. So specifically in China, this is a picture of spheres of influence in 1910. So each country has these little bits of sort of areas they control, areas they profit over. So you see France is involved, Britain, Germany, Japan, Russia. All these people have sort of chunks of China. So those are the areas that they're sort of giving themselves jurisdiction over. That's the areas where they make money, where they can profit from. The problem is, or at least for the U.S., what they see as a problem is the U.S. doesn't have one of these territories at this time. So that's what we're talking about for number 18. This is where, so for number 18, the U.S. proposes an open door policy. So basically, this is our way of trying to get in the door. We don't have really our foot in China. So other countries have sort of taken over the most profitable areas, and basically it's the U.S. So what is the open door policy for number 18? It's basically saying that everyone should have access to China. It shouldn't be just limited to these spheres of influence. We should all have access there. We should all be able to benefit. Basically, so why did the U.S. do this? We got left out. We got left behind, and we wanted in. We want to sort of throw out these spheres of influence and have our own sort of chunk of China where we could make money as well. So, but what happens here, so eventually people are going to start getting, especially native Chinese people, are going to start getting irritated when all these countries keep coming in, keep trying to dominate them, ignore what they want, and sort of take stuff for their own. And what this leads to is the Boxer Rebellion. So this is a reaction to the open door policy. So what was it? It was sort of an anti-foreigner movement. So led by Chinese people. Foreigners were actually sort of targeted. They were sort of gone after. So what happens is a lot of foreigners were sort of barricading themselves in these huge sort of fort sort of scenarios. So it was meant to get rid of the greedy foreigners from China. So they wanted to take back control. They were sick of being taken advantage of by all these foreign nations, and they were really trying to take back power. Problem is, it's really hard to get these civilized countries out of there. But as you see, eventually they do sort of take back power, and now you see China is emerging as its own country. Communism comes in with Mao Zedong. A lot of things are going on in China at this time. So this picture right here is a really cool picture. So if you can see it, China is this huge sort of fish-looking animal with a face, and everyone around them has like their swords, their guns, and they're really trying to sort of chop up China for their own use. So the bear there is Russia. You have the lion, which seems to be Germany maybe. You have the U.S. in the background, the eagle, so on the left side and the back. So actually Germany is the vulture. But you have U.S. in the back there, and that sort of shows our position at this time. You have all these other countries sort of jumping in, really going after China, and we want in. The eagle in the back wants in. And the open door policy was our way of getting in the door, targeting it. But as you can see, there are a lot of animals trying to cut up this fish, trying to claim it. And it was really a battle to see who could sort of get the most desirable areas and really benefit from this country.